Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming out on a Tuesday night. We'd like to introduce ourselves. I'm Jeff Isaacs, and this is Tracy Peoples. We're the PTO Council co-presidents, and we're both very excited about tonight's program. It's the first in a cooperative effort which is made possible due to the partnership between PTO Council and PTO and the school district. The Council and the district are partnering on a new initiative, the opening of a family engagement center, which can be found in the lower level of the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Community Building. It's just been completed and it's absolutely gorgeous. You have to get over if you haven't seen it yet and take a look. So the Family Engagement Center is a great opportunity for all parents in our district to enhance their involvement in the education of their children. And the goal of the center is really a perfect fit with our PTO Council mission, which is to facilitate the active and informed involvement of all parents and families to achieve educational success and well-being for all children. And like all mission statements, it's deceptively simple. Doing that is a lot more complicated, and we're looking forward to exploring the ways in which the Family Engagement Center will enhance that mission. Tracy, do you want?
Yes, this evening we're excited and delighted to launch the Family Engagement Series, which is sponsored by the Family Engagement Center. This is our first initiative. The Family Engagement Series consists of sessions throughout the school year that will highlight relevant and important social and educational issues. So look for a session in January that will focus on family wellness, and a session in March that will focus on technology as it relates to our students and families accessing technology through the district as well. As time goes on, watch for additional programming from the Family Engagement Center, including interactive sessions, discussion groups, workshops, and events that are aimed at enhancing our district's holistic approach to education. Following tonight's presentation, there will be approximately a 30-minute period for questions and answers, and you can step up to the mic and we'll take your questions and have our panel answer them. Now we would like to turn the session over to Dr. Hutchings, our district superintendent.
First off, I would like to thank you all for having us as the first guest for our Family Engagement Series. We have district employees, including myself. And I would also like to acknowledge some of our board members who are here this evening. We have our board president, Mr. William Clausen, who is here. If you can just wave to the folks out there. We also have one of our board members, Miss Annette Tucker Sutherland. She is here as well. And we have Miss Amy Fulford, who just walked in. And I see Mr. Alex Dykema out in the back. You thought I wouldn't catch you, but I see you. And he's also here joining us this evening. So I would like to thank you all for your continued support and for being here this evening. This is a very exciting time, I think, for our district and for us to have an opportunity to have dialogue about what we're doing in our schools, I think is tremendous. And we hope that today you will leave with more knowledge about who we are as a district, where we're going as a district, and we want to provide you an opportunity to ask any questions, so we will have a Q&A session to ask any of those questions, those pressing questions that I'm sure some of you have. But I'm going to start out to talk a little bit about our aspirations here in our district. Shaker, we aspire to continue to provide excellence, equity, and exploration. We believe that the tradition of excellence is essential for ensuring that students receive a high quality education. Many of you, you're here tonight because you believe in Shaker schools. Your kids are a part of Shaker because of the quality education we strive to provide all of our students. We believe that we need to have a focus on equity. And what we mean by equity is to ensure that 100% of our students, regardless of their circumstance, regardless of their life experiences, regardless of their learning ability, that they are able to be engaged in the Shaker experience here in Shaker schools. And also, we want to continue to embrace the IB philosophy by providing students opportunities to explore the world through formal as well as informal educational experiences here in Shaker schools. So we not only believe in, our core traditional subject areas, we think that the arts and cultural experiences are so important for our young people here in Shaker Heights. Our mission statement was developed many years ago, way before my arrival, but I think we were extremely forward-thinking when we established our mission statement here in Shaker Schools because it is still relevant to the work that we do today in regards to education in Shaker. But there are 3 key points in our mission that I wanted to just mention today, and one is nurture, as well as educate and to graduate our young people so that they are prepared to enter our global and multicultural society. So not only do we want our students to receive that educational experience that prepares them to apply for schools, we want them to be contributors to our world. Part of our vision, which I think is a little ambitious, but we're Shaker, and we want this school district to be the #1 choice, not just for students, but for families, not only in Shaker Heights, but across the country. I know, as I said before, it sounds a little ambitious, but we have people now who, am I doing that, or is that thunder? We currently have families who are part of Shaker schools who have intentionally moved to this area from other countries because of the educational reputation that we have. I've met a couple of families just this past year who their parents are currently working at Case Western. Another family is working at the Cleveland Clinic, and they researched Shaker schools prior to arriving in the United States. And they heard about Shaker's reputation and the quality education that we provide our students, and that was one of the reasons why they chose this community to live. So it sounds a little ambitious, but we already have families who know about us all over the world. But our goal is for everyone to know about Shaker. Also, the board and I, we worked with, I think, one of the most influential, strategic planning consultants that I've ever worked with, and her name is Amy Morgenstern, and she worked with us this past summer on core values, and we were able to establish 6 core values for our district. One being that we believe every student is valued regardless of their circumstance. So that's regardless of their zip code, regardless of how involved their parents may or may not be, that they are valued and that they bring something to Shaker schools that we totally embrace and that we appreciate. We also believe that every student must succeed, that they must be prepared for college, they must be prepared to enter the workforce, they must be prepared to enter military service if that is their choice. But we really want them to be global citizens who are able to give back to our community. Diversity, it makes us stronger. And I think diversity, and I believe diversity in Shaker makes Shaker Shaker. That is one of the reasons why I sought after Shaker schools, why I applied for the job, why my wife chose Shaker schools before I even was offered the job and said, this is where we're going to raise our family, because of the values we have here in Shaker Heights City Schools and how we embrace diversity. Breadth of experience is vital, and we embrace the plethora of course selections that we offer our students so that they're challenged and that they're provided the rigor that they need in order to be successful when they leave Shaker schools. And we also value, as I said earlier, our formal as well as our informal educational experiences, including our co-curricular activities, our international travel, the arts, the fact that every student plays an instrument in 5th grade. I think that's phenomenal, and every student is exposed to Chinese beginning in 1st grade here in Shaker schools. Fiscal responsibility is essential, And as community members and taxpayers who are here in this room, we want to continue to spend every dollar as if it is our last. And we are financially efficient. We want to be good stewards of the tax money that we receive from our community. And then finally, we are all accountable. And it's not that it's just, the superintendent's responsibility to ensure that our schools are successful. It is everyone's responsibility. That includes our staff members, our faculty, our students, our parents, our community members, our city, our business owners. We need to have an all-hands-on-deck approach, and that is really the only way that we're going to be able to attain our 6 goals. And that leads into what makes Shaker a quality school district. I'm not going to go in detail about our strategic plan, but you can join us on October 7th at our work session. We will have an overview. Our Board of Education will have an overview of our strategic plan, and we will begin to talk about our strategic initiatives for the 2014-2015 school year. But I would like to highlight the 6 goals that we have outlined in our 5-year strategic plan. Goal 1 deals with the Shaker experience, and it's not about the traditional content areas. It's about all of the offerings that we have for our young people here in Shaker schools. Goal 2 deals with continuous improvement, and our 5-year strategic plan is the first step in us ensuring that we attain the continuous improvement goal here in Shaker schools. But we're also looking at the technology infrastructure in our schools. We're looking at professional learning for our teachers to ensure that every student receives an expert teacher when they enter any classroom in Shaker Heights City Schools. Goal 3 deals with policy and policy development. It is so important that we provide a quality education for all of our students and that we have policies that support our schools so that we can provide the rigor and the challenge that our students deserve. Goal 4 deals with human resources and facilities. As I mentioned time and time again, 25% of our teaching staff will be eligible for retirement over the next 3 years. This year alone, to date, which board members are going to receive a report in October, but we've already had 16 retirements for next year, teachers who are retiring. So we have to be ready to put quality teachers in our classrooms and to go out and recruit the best teachers and the best candidates, and also be able to retain them so we can continue our tradition of excellence. In our facilities, we are in the beginning stages of a facilities plan. We will begin talking about what that plan is going to look like for our district over the next few years. Goal 5 deals with communication, and it's not just about our website, which I think is phenomenal. So Peggy, you and your team do a great job in keeping that updated. And it's not just about the recording this evening, so anyone who's not in attendance tonight, this will be posted on our website, and you will have an opportunity to watch this program on your own computer at home at your own time. But it's about making sure that our community members and our businesses are active partners with our schools. We can only attain or achieve our 6 goals with the assistance and the support of our community. Goal 6 deals with finances, and I will continue to say this over and over again because this is the question I get every time I'm out in the community that, are you going to have another tax levy, or what are you doing with the funds? We are trying to make sure that we are good stewards of our funds, and we're making efficient and effective decisions so that every student receives a quality education. And we want to continue to provide that high quality education for all of our students in an efficient and an effective manner. Another thing that I wanted to mention deals with measuring what matters. And if you have not already received a copy of Measuring What Matters at home, it will be in your box someday in the next couple of weeks. I received mine last week, I think on Friday, and my area code is 44122. So zip code is 44122, and I think it's done by zip code. Am I right, Peggy? So hopefully you will receive it soon if you have not already. But we have restructured our Measuring What Matters document. Last year, Measuring What Matters focused on highlights of our district. Now we still continue to focus on highlights of the previous year of our district, but we're also focusing on our 5-year strategic plan. And we want to make sure that we provide the progress of our 5-year strategic plan with the community, that we allow you all to know where we are in regards to our strategic initiatives, if we've attained our specific goals, and what our next steps are in regards to attaining specific strategic initiatives and goals. So you will receive the new and improved Measuring What Matters that gives an overview this year of our 5-year plan and also provides the highlights from the 2013-14 school year. Starting next year, you will begin to see the highlights of each one of our goals as well as the strategic initiatives. And it will still be released in the middle of September, around the same time that the state issues their report card, which is just one measurement of the quality of our schools. So I want to make that point as well. So that's all that I have, all that I'm able to say today, because we have a great team here.
Good evening. I'm Dale Whittington. I'm the Director of Research and Accountability for the Shaker Heights City School District. And my task tonight is to share with you a little bit about the state report card data that the state has already released. There are other pieces that they have not yet released. And then to try to give you an overview of the various kinds of assessments that we are administering this year and where those assessments come from. So let me start with the district report card. There are a variety of areas that are graded, and 4 of them have been released thus far. One has to do with achievement, which is measured in 2 ways. One using what they call a performance index, which is kind of like a graded GPA, and then something called the indicators, which has to do with the percent of students who passed each of the state tests. Graduation looks at what percent of our students graduated within 4 years, and then they look again at how many graduated within 5 years. So that's why there are 2 grades there. Annual measurable objectives is what you see on the state report card. That's their language, but more conventionally, this has to do with what we think of as the achievement gap. This is different from the usual way we think about it, where we look at differences among groups. This takes each group and compares them to a common state standard. And then finally, there's that area called value added, which tries to look at how students are progressing over time. And the state gives a variety of grades on that one as well, an overall value added grade, and then value added for specific groups, students who are identified as gifted, students who are African American, and students who scored in the bottom 10% of the state. Okay, I'm going to go through each one now in a little more specificity. First of all, the achievement grades. Whether you're talking about the performance index or you're talking about indicators, it's important to remember that these grades are based on one thing: state tests. The district performance this year was similar to what it was the year before. We have looked at our data, and we have determined that we really do need to focus on certain things, specifically mathematics and science for students in 5th, 7th, and 8th grade. Our graduation rate is an area where we demonstrated quite significant improvement compared to last year, and we attribute a lot of this to significantly improved monitoring and intervention with students who were identified as being at risk of not making it on time. And we want to continue to do that by continuing to improve what we've been doing in the areas of monitoring and intervening. And we also are going to try to focus particularly on how we are preparing our students for the Ohio graduation test. Annual measurable objectives, which is another way of talking about the achievement gap, is not based on all test scores that students take, just the test scores in reading and mathematics. It also is based on the graduation rate. Each year, the state standard against which each group is compared is raised. So the standard that we had to meet this year was higher than the year before, and the one that we're going to have to try to meet for 2014-15 is even higher. Based on our analysis of these results, we saw some improvement over 2012-13. We also have determined that we need to focus specifically on African Americans, students with identified disabilities, and students who are on free and reduced lunch. Finally, there's that area that the state calls progress and that we more commonly think of as value added. This too is based on state test scores using a value added formula that is kept secret. The company that has it sort of treats it like the Coke formula. Nobody can find out what it is. Be it as it may, we do know that what they do is they take all of a child's past test scores, going back as far as 3rd grade, and throwing them into the formula to make a prediction of how the child should do in the upcoming year, and then that's compared to how the child actually scored. That leads to this value-added grade. Overall, our grade was the same as it was last year. There was an increase in the grade for gifted students. Again, because of this, we have determined that we really do need to focus on students with disabilities and students who are scoring in the bottom 20% of the state. Now, what that means is the state has a cutoff for the bottom 20%, and if a child earns that score or lower, that child falls into that bottom 20% group. Now, we'll move on to assessments. You may have figured out that there's a lot more this year, and so I'd like to give you a general idea of where all of this is coming from. First, we have a large amount of testing that we have to do because of the various state mandates. We have state report cards, we have accountability, we have teacher accountability. The list does go on. And as a result of that, we have a variety of assessments that we have to administer to our students this year. We always have been using assessments, far fewer of them, for instructional purposes. We use things like Ames Web and STARS and teachers' own assessments to figure out where students are, where do they need to grow, and what kinds of instruction they need to do to help students do better. And that's a very traditional and very important use of assessment. And finally, there is a state mandate that we administer a nationally normed standardized test every other year. Now, let me go over these state mandated tests because that's the piece where the growth of testing has really increased. Some of you may have heard the term PARCC. That stands for Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. And the PARCC is one of two national organizations that were funded by the federal government to develop new, rich, authentic assessments that are aligned with the Common Core. PARCC is one organization that's serving 13 different states. In that area, PARCC has developed assessments for students in grades 3 through 8 in two content areas, English Language Arts and mathematics. In addition, 9th graders are going to begin taking some assessments this year. This is tied in with the new graduation requirements in Ohio. And if a student is in 9th grade English, Algebra 1, or Geometry, or a combination of those, that student will be taking PARCC assessments. By the way, your note doesn't, or your handout didn't include English, so if you have a pen, you can jot that down. Then the state has also created new standards in the areas of science and social studies. Those new standards have been around now for about 4 years, and the state commissioned a company called AIR, and that company developed tests in science and social studies that are aligned with these new state standards. These tests, too, are designed to be very much like the PARCC assessments, with lots of what they refer to as rich and authentic assessment. The science tests will be administered to 5th graders and 8th graders, plus 9th graders who are going to be taking physical science this year. And the social studies test is being administered to students in grades 4 and 6. I think your handout says grade 9. It's an upside-down 6, but at any rate, if you could correct that. And also high school students who are completing United States government or American history. Right now, this second test, these high school tests are not required for graduation because it's 11th graders who are taking these courses. But the state has yet another law that requires that we administer these tests. All of these assessments come in two parts. The first is what we call a performance-based assessment. I think on the state or on the district testing calendar, you'll see the phrase PBA. That stands for performance-based assessment. And these assessments present very rich problems, very complex stimuli, maybe a long reading passage, and then a variety of questions are asked about those things. And very often, rather than doing a multiple choice, in fact, most of the time they don't do multiple choice on these performance-based assessments. The student is drawing an answer, doing drag and drop, composing rich responses in language. There are a variety of ways in which this is carried out, but it is not like the traditional multiple choice test. The performance-based assessments are designed to assess roughly 75% of the material covered in a given school year, and they are administered at the end of February and the beginning of March. The end-of-year assessments may be a little bit of a misnomer because they're administered actually at the end of April and the beginning of May. They cover what's supposed to be 100% of the year, and they also include a blend of some of these performance-based type items, but they also include a lot more multiple-choice type questions. The state-mandated testing doesn't end there, though. Certain things have not changed. So the Ohio Achievement Assessment in Reading is still being administered to third graders in the fall because of the Ohio Reading Guarantee. The Ohio Graduation Test will still be administered to 10th graders this year, as well as 11th and 12th graders who still need to pass one or more of the tests. That is because they need to pass the OGT in order to graduate. The class of 2017 is the last year that will be required to pass the OGT. You may have heard about MAP, which stands for Measures of Academic Progress. These are computer-administered tests in the areas of mathematics and English language arts. Several different grades are taking these. For the state-mandated piece, it's children between kindergarten and third grade. For the nationally normed test requirement, we're also administering the MAP to students in fourth and sixth grade. And finally, there's CAP, which stands for the Cooperative Assessment Project. This project is a consortium of area school districts who developed their own tests in science and social studies for that are aligned with the new state standards. Those are being administered to all 7th and 8th graders, as well as students in the lower grade levels who will be facing one of the new state tests this spring. And of course, there are some areas that need to be assessed for state-mandated reasons that don't have a published test. And for those, the teachers are designing assessments. Sometimes those are tests. Sometimes those are assignments where students create work and then the teachers evaluate the results based on rubrics. Regardless of what kind of tests they're being given and regardless of the subject, when you're talking about MAP, CAP, teacher-designed assessments, or student work, they all must be administered twice, once in the fall and once again in the spring, around the time of spring break. Now, this is obviously a lot of testing. Most of it is due to mandates over which we have no control. And what we are trying to do is minimize the impact of this where we can. And so we are operating under two cardinal rules. One is don't add on any testing that's not absolutely necessary. And secondly, where possible, we are trying to use the same assessment for more than one purpose. And the MAP assessment is a good example of that, where we have ended up using it to meet more than one state requirement. So with that, I will move on to Dr. Cooley.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us this evening. I'm Lynn Coolidge. I'm the new director of curriculum here at Shaker. And this evening, I'm going to speak just very briefly with you about the Common Core State Standards, Ohio's new learning standards, the International Baccalaureate, and our curricular focus here in the Shaker City School District. So, first off, I'd like to show you, it's very short, it's a 3-minute video, but I think the message is very concise and it's clear, and it really highlights the Common Core State Standards. So, enjoy the short video.
Like it or not, life is full of measuring sticks. How smart we are, how fast we are, how well we can, compete. But up until now, it's been pretty hard to tell how well kids are competing in school and how well they're going to do when they get out of school. We like to think that our education system does that, but when it comes to learning what they really need to be successful after graduation, is a girl in your neighborhood being taught as much as her friend over in the next one? Is a graduating senior in, say, St. Louis as prepared to get a job as the graduate in Shanghai? Well, it turns out the answer to both of these questions is no. Because for years, states have been setting different standards for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. That's making it too hard to know if our kids are really doing well enough overall, and if they can really compete for a job someday. What we really need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core State Standards come in. They're like a total sea change in education. Consistent, strong, clear benchmarks for English language arts and math. Here's how it works. You can think of kindergarten through 12th grade like a giant staircase. Each step is a skill your child needs to learn before stepping up to the next one. But right now, too many kids aren't really confident with 2 + 2 before they have to move on to 2 × 2. We need more focus on the skills that help them move up the stairs, or they can slip up and fall behind. And there's another problem. What if everyone's stairs were made at different heights? Well, here we go again. They are. So, a boy in Seattle who's rocking an A in English literature could be getting a C on his Chicago friend's staircase. Oops. We need to create consistent steps in education, too. So first, each standard creates a landing on the staircase, a stop along the way as your child heads toward high school graduation. Each stop is a chance for every parent and teacher to focus on the skills their students are supposed to know at that step, no matter the zip code, language, or race. And more importantly, each standard makes sure all students are learning what they need to know to get to graduation and beyond. Because something like counting to 100 leads to understanding dollars and cents, which eventually leads to understanding how to manage a budget. Secondly, the standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too. Now we know how we're doing compared to just about everyone. So even though local communities will still design their own curriculum, with the same rules, everybody can compete on the same kind of staircase. But standards aren't learning. That's why we need teachers, parents, and students to help make that happen by working together to help kids meet these standards. The world's getting more and more competitive every day. But now, when our kids get to the top of their staircase, they can have way more options on where their life goes from there. Clear goals, confident, well-prepared students. That's the Common Core State Standards.
All right, so just to sum up the video presentation, the Common Core State Standards set grade-by-grade learning expectations for all our students in grades kindergarten through 12th in math and English language arts. While state standards, especially in Ohio, have been around for more than 15 years, these standards are unique because the focus is very different. It's on preparing students for success in college and careers. They set clear, consistent, and rigorous learning targets. In addition to the Common Core State Standards, Ohio has adopted their own standards in science, social studies, world languages, as well as fine arts. Okay. You're all probably wondering, why in the world did I take a paper clip when I entered the auditorium this evening? So if you've got that paper clip, and maybe you can hold it up, I want you to think about it a minute. What in the world is the purpose of a paper clip? Show of hands, a volunteer? Yes. I'm sorry? Absolutely, right? It's to clip papers. Well, actually, I'd like you to think of a paper clip differently. How else might we use a paper clip? All right, I know especially there are some students here in our audience this evening. So how else might you use a paper clip? What do you think? Yes? Absolutely. If you didn't hear her, she said to eject something, to hit that eject button if it's stuck. Anyone else have a suggestion for the paperclip? Any of our students in the audience? Any suggestions? Oh, yes, right over here. Say it again.
To link them.
Oh, to link them. Absolutely. Well, if you link them, what would you do with them once they were linked? A chain. What if your pants were falling down? Yeah, you could use it as a belt or maybe even a jump rope. Okay, so I want you to think about them totally differently. And, oh, there was another one? Okay, go ahead. Tell us what you would do with your paper clips. I've done that before. He said you can use it as a zipper. Yeah, absolutely. It works like magic. Okay, so if you look at the screen, you see the box of paper clips. I want you to imagine that each of those boxes represents Ohio's new learning standards. So for example, we have math and we have fine arts and world languages. And if you opened up a box, for example, the English language arts box, we would see all of these paper clips, standards, aligned very nicely from kindergarten through 12th grade. However, what you don't see when you open up the box is a set of directions. There are no directions that tell us how to use the paper clips or what to make from the paper clips. That's the beauty of Ohio's new learning standards. We as a district get to choose what we make or how we use them. So if we want to make a zipper, well, then we will. So actually, I love this picture. Here in Shaker, we might use our paper clips or standards to make this. However, in Warrensville, they might make this. Each school district in the state of Ohio gets to choose the resources they use to address Ohio's new learning standards. And this freedom really allows us to foster our Shaker creativity. Okay, so you might be asking, why in the world do we have to change standards and the way that we've been doing things? We've had them for over 15 years now. Why change now? Well, we know that we have to get better at preparing our students for the jobs and careers of the 21st century. So in order to do that, we really need to change our focus and we need to increase the rigor. So I'm just going to give you a brief example. For instance, in English language arts and literacy, the focus has shifted to reading and writing and speaking about informational texts and citing evidence from those texts. Now, that's not to say that our students are not going to read or write narratives or stories. They are. But there's going to be an increased focus on the amount of informational texts. For example, in math, the focus is on helping students develop conceptual understanding, procedural skills, and fluency, as well as application. We've all heard the expression, there are many ways to crack an egg, or maybe a nut. Same way with a math problem. We know that we want our students to use the 8 different mathematical practices when they sit down to solve a problem. There's more than one way to get that answer. In science, our focus has shifted to scientific inquiry as well as 21st century skills, such as critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And finally, the focus for social studies is on historical skills, civic participation, as well as financial literacy. Okay, I'm going to actually stand up because I know you all have been sitting for some time. So if I can invite you to stand, I want to explain a little bit about the International Baccalaureate, and I have an analogy. So if everybody would stand for a second. All right. Put your arms out, make sure you're balanced. All right. Just play along with me here for a minute. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to do a backflip. 1, 2, 3. Anybody? Okay, you can have a seat. I wasn't sure. I know we've got some students in the audience. I didn't know if I'd have anyone take me up on the offer, but obviously, it was near impossible to do. However, imagine for a second that you're on a trampoline. And the reason I use this analogy is, ironically, I was at International Baccalaureate training this summer in Austin, Texas, and my husband was at home with my 3 children, and he sent me, he had just bought a new iPhone, so of course he was all about playing with the video and slow motion, and he sent me a video of my youngest, my son Jonathan, who's 11. He was jumping on our neighbor's new trampoline. One, I was not thrilled to find out the neighbor just purchased a trampoline. But what I was amazed with is my son's very athletic, but he's not a gymnast. However, the video was of my son doing a triple backflip and then a front flip on the trampoline. Now, I can assure you there's no way he could have done it on the ground. So what's my point to this story? The trampoline is like our International Baccalaureate. It's like a platform, because the International Baccalaureate is not a curriculum, but it's a platform that allows our students to catapult and, if you will, do multiple backflips. So when I saw my son do that, I thought, wow, that's exactly what the International Baccalaureate is like. It allows us to address the state standards with a completely different mindset. A mindset of inquiry, international mindedness, compassion, and respect for diversity. So really, we know that Ohio's new learning standards, as well as Common Core, they're embedded with rigor. And rigor is certainly embedded within our International Baccalaureate units that our students are involved with. So we offer our Shaker students a world-class education here, and often what other students don't have access to, because they're able to address the new standards via an International Baccalaureate platform. And finally, I want to just speak briefly about our curricular focus here in Shaker. I created a graphic organizer that's cyclical for a reason. We look at our curricular resources each year, but in order to be realistic as well as fiscally responsible, we need to have a focus. So this year, actually 2013-14, our focus is on math, and we have adopted a new K-5 math series, and in addition, we're piloting a 6-8 series. We have also created a curriculum map that is aligned with IB and the Common Core state standards. 2014-15 school year, our focus will shift slightly to English language arts, and we'll be analyzing our curricular resources and creating maps. The following year, 2015-16, our focus shifts to science. And then again, in 2016-17, the focus moves towards social studies. And then you guessed it, we'll be back focusing in on math. And again, I assure you, that's not to say we're not looking at everything we're doing. But when we make decisions in a district to spend a significant amount of money purchasing resources, we have to have a focus. Okay, and so with that, I'll introduce you to Mr. Weemet Smith.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. All right. I'm going to talk with you this evening about how you can promote successful school experiences And I'm going to run through these really quickly. The first thing you can do is to have a dialogue with your son or daughter and make sure you ask him or her about what's going on at school. What did they study? What did they like? How was their day? And if you get the typical answer that most kids give you, oh, I don't know, okay, fine, you might want to try to say, what were you supposed to learn at school today? And see if you can get an answer that way. Another thing that's really important for our young people is to have a quiet study area set up in your home somewhere. It may be in your dining room, it may be your living room, but an area that's set up for them that's quiet. And something that's really important is to make sure we have that TV turned off. And for us, those of us who are new wave, who have new iPhones that have those wonderful tones and chirps and all of those things, you got to silence those too, and those vibrations. You got to take that stuff and put it where they can't hear it or be exposed to it, because I know every time my phone beeps, dings, chirps, vibrates, my little guy always goes, "Who was that, Daddy? What was that, Daddy?" So I have to make sure we put the phone away and bury it so that he can't hear those things. Have a regular schedule set up for them to engage in their work. Some people, they come home, they get a snack first. Some students get a snack first, then they work on homework. Some have dinner first, work on homework. Many of our students have activities. It's soccer, it's hockey, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's track. So they may have to have time, even some of them, where they go to bed and get up in the morning time and do homework. But they need to have a regular schedule that they follow routinely. Something else that's really important is that you learn with your students. If they have homework and you know they're going to work on a tough project, you may want to take time to set up an article or a project for work, and while they're working, sit across from the table, because they appreciate, number one, that you're spending the time with them, and two, you're actually modeling for them how to engage in constructive work so that they can see you doing it and they have an idea of what it means to focus in a quiet area and spend time working on a project for a sustained period of time. Make sure that you're learning everywhere. You may want to take a project. I know some of you are into these cooking shows, Bobby Flay and Iron Chef. You may want to try to make one of those dishes so that they get a chance to work on a concept like measurement or fractions. But you want to make sure you're relating what learning they're doing to everyday life experiences. That's really important. You want to get to the schools, meet the teachers, find out from the teachers what they're studying and how and if you can be of assistance to them as they work on their endeavors in the classroom. And you also want to make sure you praise them. There's that old saying that you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. So we want to keep that in mind as we work with our own sons and daughters, to make sure you let them know when they've done a good job, and make sure it's sincere. You don't want to praise them just for the sake of praising them, but you want to let them know that you've taken a look at the work that they've done and that it's quality, and if they've done a good job, tell them, because there is nothing in the world that motivates a child like praise from their parents. And this is another one for those of us who are into our new age. You got to monitor social media, and this is more so for middle school, high school students, but social media has become a realm. Those of us who are adults that don't engage in it, you need to check to see what your kids are doing, because we know about Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Vine, but there are a lot of other apps out there that are designed for adults only, and guess what, folks? Your children are on those apps. So they're hearing and seeing conversations that are meant for adults. If you don't know names like Yik Yak, Kik, Secret, Whisper, Tinder, or WhatsApp, you need to find out about those and see what's going on and make sure your sons and daughters, we buy them the smartphones, and all they have to do, if they've got a password on their own or they have your password, they can download the apps on their own, and then they have access to a world that you may know nothing about. So please make sure you are aware of what's going on with them in the world of social media. And lastly, motivating your child. You want to make sure they know just how important learning is to you. Now, I'm sure I can look out in the audience and I can see a variety of hairstyles out there and a variety of hair colors, and I know that children cause many of us to have different physiological reactions. As you can see, I've lost all my hair and I only have one. But you want them to know exactly how valuable learning is to you, and you want to do it in a non-judgmental way in a way that's not threatening, so that they really understand that education is important and that you know that that's the key to their future. Again, get involved at school. That's one of the reasons we're engaging in this endeavor with the PTO. That's why they're here. And lastly, you want to foster a growth mindset. And I know that when I went to my son's open house, his principal talked about having a growth mindset. And I was really encouraged by what she said. One, because she talked about becoming a good golfer, and I'm a golfer, sort of. And the other thing was, she used an analogy where she talked about mathematics and people that always say, I'm not good at, and you can fill in the blank. But most of us in school, it was math. And there's enough research out there now, folks, that tells us that we can be good at anything we are willing to work at. That's not to say that we're going to become experts at it. That's not to say that we're going to become the best in the world at it. But if we have a true growth mindset, which is what we want to foster in our children, we have to show them how to work at concepts so that they can get better at those things.